What I'd like you to do in your heads is go back to 2017. Go back in your mind in 2017 and think about where you were professionally, where you were as a parent, where did you live, where were you as a friend, what was your life like? Okay, just put it in your head. And then we're going to remind you that back in 2017, here's what didn't exist. The GOVA Innovation Hub did not exist. That's here in South Boston. The Seed Innovation Hub wasn't even a gleam in Sherry's eye, I don't think. It wasn't even a gleam. There were no middle school labs focused on precision engineering and occupations that require technical skills. Middle schools didn't have those labs, right? Morgan Olson didn't exist in the Danville, Pittsylvania area. Not saying Region 3 had anything to do with it, but Morgan Olson obviously is a big deal. Aero Farms was not even in the thought process of anybody. Fast Sea up in Nottoway County was a military base, right? And look what it has done in the last 2 years through COVID in terms of refugee resettlement. That's an impact. In Brunswick County, drones were never even in the language. Nobody talked about drones, and yet in Brunswick County, drones have been tested by companies like UPS and NATO. And last but not least, there wasn't an organization visible called TechSpark. What the heck is TechSpark? Microsoft was here in Mecklenburg, but TechSpark wasn't really active. So there's a lot that's happened in these last few years. Brian? This is where your council has made its investments, and I know it's kind of hard to read. What you want to focus on is that they've invested in talent and workforce, they've invested in entrepreneurship and innovation, they've invested in sites and buildings, and they've invested in scale up. You're going to hear a lot of really emotional stories today in each of these categories. The big thing I think that's interesting is that there are more than 10 projects now, but those projects have leveraged over $9 million, probably more like $10 to $12 million in total, with private, nonprofit, and non-state money. And that's pretty darn impressive. Next slide, Brian.
One job.
So let's just touch briefly on where this council wants to head going forward. After the strategic planning process, the council adopted 4 priority goal areas. And in those goal areas, there are 4 or 5 strategies for each goal. We're going to touch on them lightly. They're important to you because if you think about where you might have a project in one of these areas that Go Virginia could help with, this is where you start the discussion. This is like an investment firm. Carl Stauber always said, we should act like an investor because we have money and we want a return on the investment. And yes, it's financial, but it's also this kind of collaborative. So think about how this might apply in your community. Talent development goals. What we'd like to make sure that happens is that GoTech is anchored, continues. GoTech is the workforce development program with the middle school labs. Sector-based partnerships. Are there some industry sectors in your region that need help? Apprenticeship. Go Virginia Region 3 Council has a really good and deep apprenticeship report. You can use that as a guide and a reference. But companies who utilize apprenticeship often end up employing those kids for a long time. And those kids get great work experience. So how can we leverage and build apprenticeship? And then talent attraction and retention. This came up a lot, and anybody who's in this room knows it's really tough for businesses, nonprofits, government to attract talent right now. The population is declining. You can hear a really depressing report when Hamilton from UVA Weldon Cooper Center presents his data. But how can Southern Virginia, how can Region 3, both retain its young talent and attract its young talent, new talent? So you guys think about projects that might work in that space. Nancy? Oh,
it's fine.
I think. Next slide, Brian.
Okay. First of all, I can't believe they gave me a microphone. And between Randy and Liz, they've said everything that I have planned to say. So, but what I do want you all to know is I am a product of Region 3. I grew up in Crewe, Virginia. I went to college in Danville, Virginia, and I have lived in Halifax County, Virginia, longer than most of y'all have been alive. And so I just cannot tell you, with my full career at the Chamber of Commerce here in Halifax County of 35 plus years, we always had hoped we would see collaboration and cooperation and communication. But we really didn't see that until 2016. And I am here to tell you, the Lord has blessed me that He's allowed me to live long enough and that they gave me a microphone. That I could stand up here in front of you all who are the reason that we're here today. The work that this regional council is doing is extraordinary. And it is the first time that I, in my feeble experience, have ever seen anything quite like this. And as we go through the day, you all will see what has come from the investments that this group has made. And just like Liz or Randy once said, from 2016, from day one, when the regional council got together, it was always about collaboration. I never saw ego. I never saw anyone territorial or combative or any of that. I saw nothing but vision and a passion for making this region the best that it can. And let me tell you that the projects that this region has funded are transformational. And we are seeing, and we are going to continue to see, how these investments have paid off. So that's my sermon, and now I'm supposed to talk a little bit about what we're doing. And this is one of the really exciting things for me, entrepreneurialism. We've never really embraced it in Halifax County and others. And it came out as one of the goals in our Growth and Diversification Plan, which you will see more about. And it is so exciting. We're looking at growing some of our own talent and equipping them with the ability to go out and create a business and hire people and pay good wages. That is wonderful. And over and above that, it is built into the GoTech platform. So now children in the 6th grade will be able to see about entrepreneurialism. And that, as I told someone earlier, it's okay to color out of the lines. You don't have to always just do this. You might have a thought. You might be able to take it and scale it up. And we are privileged, and I'm sure I'm stealing Lauren's thunder here, but we're privileged today to have Tom Chapman here, who is with Co-Starters, and I am personally very excited to meet him and to have him here, but you'll hear more about that in a little bit. Let's see. So, the RISE Collaborative is thriving, and you can see, I don't need to read all of this to you, but we've got the Innovation Hub here in South Boston, and we're getting another Innovation Hub in Farmville. And there's, pockets of it, and those are connecting. So it's going to permeate the region. Okay, I think I'm ready to move on. Yes.
You want me to do that one?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm like, oh.
Nancy's the best storyteller ever. I have such admiration for her. So site development is the 3rd area that the council wants to invest in going forward. And you might say, why the heck do we need more sites? We need more companies. At the end of the day, investment in sites is a long-term strategy, and the kind of sites that are needed are not necessarily the ones that are completely across our region. There's an imbalance. Sites drive prospect activity. And prospect activity, recruiting new businesses and expanding existing is still a fundamental economic development need here. So the council wants to continue investments in sites. A couple things we noticed during the strategy is that our sites are not rated at the top tier. So we need to make sure as many of the sites that you all manage and own get up tiered. That means they get more prepared so that there's less cost to the business coming in. We need to make sure that the eastern and northeastern regions of our Go Virginia region have prepared sites. The data clearly shows that the vast majority of prospect activity is occurring in a concentrated area along US 58 from Halifax west. And if you look at what those counties and cities of Danville and Martinsville and Henry and Pittsylvania and Patrick and Halifax have done, you see the investment they've made. We need this balance to occur across the region. So there's an emphasis right now on figuring out how to help in the north and eastern parts of the region. The business-ready sites in that third bullet for business services and healthcare, we lack appropriate sites for business services and healthcare. That means not manufacturing. So think about in your community, are there buildings that could be upfitted, upbuilt for these two sectors? And last but not least, unique properties. We have a lot of unique properties in this area. The old St. Paul's College in David's territory in Brunswick County is a wonderful piece of property that could be used and was used as part of the drone test. How do we find those other unique properties and start to invest in those? Next slide, Brian.
Okay, as we were up, I've lost my word, but that happens when you get old. But updating, not a difficult word. But as we were going through updating our Growth and Diversification Plan for 2021, there were many interviews. There were many sessions, and we personally spoke with right at 100 individuals. And it was a wonderful experience because these people, many of them probably in the room today, were throughout the region. So we got a really good perspective from the people that we talked with. And it was interesting that in each one of the interviews that I personally was involved in, not that this was necessarily one of the questions, but it came up about leadership. Long-term, sustainable leadership. And it's leadership not just for our regional council, but that's a very important part because we need to ensure that our regional council is sustaining and moves forward, and that we do have and are grooming good leaders to come onto that council. For the long term of our region, but also leadership within our communities. And so it was really interesting to talk with folks and to hear what they had to say. And so this is a very important goal for us, and it's new in the Growth and Diversification Plan, which is also a living document. Our Growth and Diversification Plan is something that the regional council sticks to very closely, but they recognize also if it needs tweaking, if it needs something added to it. So, you know, this was something new that came through. So we need to make sure that our collaborations continue. And as a result of this, we have formed, or there are going to be formed, groups from throughout the region, economic developers, chambers of commerce,
K-12 superintendents,
school superintendents, and all types of, hopefully too, county administration, to where you can collaborate with people throughout the region that, you know, live what you live every day. And so that helps everybody. And so that is something that has come through the Go Virginia Region 3 initiative. So I guess I'm done. They told me they would pull the plug when I talked to them. And I think they're
Plug's not pulled, yeah.
well, anyway, I just want you all to know that I am privileged to be here. I'm a small part of what this group does, but I am aware of what they're doing. And I'm seeing it and living it, and I hope that when you leave here today, you will feel as passionately as I do about the work that's being done. Thank you.
Brian, could you pull the last slide, please? So this is the African proverb that ties back into Cinco de Mayo, and it really is all about, do you want to go fast or do you want to go far? Collaboratives create long-term success. Collaboratives are hard to keep together, and to Nancy's point, keeping all of you and your networks engaged in this Go Virginia process is the only way it'll succeed. But this is what you want to see. You plant the seed today, and you may not live under the shade of that tree, but you know that your grandchildren will. So we encourage you to read the plan. It's 150 pages. Have fun.
You can treat it like I did my fund accounting book when I was at Tech. I put it under my pillow. Osmosis. I don't think that works. One thing I should have mentioned, and most of you I think probably know this, but when you think about these regional councils, the majority of them have to be business folks. So I think with ours, it's 13 of the 19 members are business related. So as you think about leadership, and we think about the regional council, you might think about what business leaders in your community would be good to get involved in this type of endeavor. So I will leave you. We're going to break. I don't want to take but a minute, but I will tell you, I was reminding Brian? I will tell you, I was talking to somebody in the back and thinking about the COVID years, and I remember we needed to have the executive committee meeting. I can't remember what the issue was, but we needed to have it in person before we figured out how you could do hybrid meetings. So we were trying to figure out how to do it, and so we said, okay, we'll meet at American National Bank. Well, right after that, American National Bank said, you can't come in the building. We're not letting anybody in. I said, okay. So there's a photo of Charlie Majors and Tim Clark and Carl Stauber and myself. We're standing in the parking lot, and we're socially distant. So I'm standing here, and Gary went on, and Tim's probably where he is, and there's somebody else over here. And we're looking at our phones, so we've got people on the phone, and we can't hear each other so far apart. So we listen to the phone, and that's how we would transact business. Jeff Haley walks out of the bank and cracks up because he sees the four of us in the wintertime standing in the parking lot. And this was a public meeting. We had to advertise it as a public meeting. So people could have come and joined us in the parking lot, but luckily everybody had more sense and didn't do it. So we've come a long ways to have a group like this together again, and it's great. Let's take about a 15-minute break, and we'll get to the real meat of the meeting once we come back.